Um, let's look at pivot tables. Pivot tables summarize large data sets quickly by grouping, counting, or totaling values. Drag and drop fields into rows, columns, and values. Great for reports and dashboards. So this is where the work is. If you understand this, then the job is almost done. So let's look at it. So I have this data. We are about to go into analysis. So what is the best practice? Convert this to a table. I'll press Ctrl T, or you go to insert table. Okay. Now for pivot table, I'll go to insert again. Pivot table. I'll click on pivot table. New worksheet, existing worksheet. So I will use new worksheet. So it's going to open in a new sheet. Now this is how the interface look like, how the environment look like. Here, very important, I have all my headers here. I have all my headers here. So here I have columns, I have rows, values, filter. By now you should know what is columns, rows. So by now you should know that. Then let's look at some questions I have. Assuming I'm asked what is the average annual salary by department. Okay, let me do something. Let me do something. I'll copy this. What is the total? I will start with total. Assuming I'm asked what is the total what is the total annual salary by department? What is the total annual salary by department? So this is easier to achieve using pivot table. It's easier to achieve with pivot table. So you come to your pivot table. What is the total annual salary by department? You drag the department to rows. By so doing, it will just list out the departments for your accounting, engineering, finance, human resource, and so on. You can still drag it to columns. So columns will arrange it this way, but I prefer the rows arrangement. So it depends on your preference, but I prefer the rows. The rows is much better. Now, what is the total annual salary by department? What is going to give me what I'm looking for? Is salary, annual salary. So now, you drag the annual salary. Annual salary, what is the total? What is giving me that thing? What will help me to determine the total annual salary by this department? Is the annual salary column. So you drag that thing to values. Automatically, you can see, you can sort it. Just right click and say sort, largest to smallest. So in total, IT, the end move, followed by engineering, marketing. So with this, you are able to solve that problem. Let's assume you are asked to determine the total annual salary by department. With this, you solve the problem. Is it confusing? It's not confusing. Okay, let's do it again. You can remove it. What is the total annual salary by department? First, listen to the question. Look at the columns you will need. What is the total annual salary? What they are looking for is the annual salary. So that thing will be in values. Then annual salary by department. It's just like coming to you. Let's assume this data that we have here, because that is being done from this data. Now they ask you total annual salary by department. What will you do? You will now come and look for all those in IT. This person is in IT, okay, plus IT. You just total it like that. At the end of the day, you get for IT. You now start again for finance, just like that. But with the help of pivot table, it's very easier. First, you just drag the department to rows, then you have the department. You can even put it in columns. Then you drag that annual salary, what will give you what you are looking for to values. You can see now how it is arranged, but I don't like this arrangement. So that is why the rows is much better. It's as simple as that. The second question say, what is the average annual salary by department? It's still the same thing. Now this is total. By default, it will always give you sum of annual salary. Now we are looking for average. What will you do? You come here, click on this drop down. You say fill value field settings. So you can now change to average, counts, average, and so on. So we are looking for average. Just change to average. It will now give you the average of annual salary. So it will give you the average of annual salary. So let's look at another question. I'll look at this question. What is the average age by job title? What is the average age by job title? I'll come back again. So it's another question. I can rename this one to salary by department. So for the next question, I will still come to my main data. I'll go to insert pivot table. I'll say okay. I can call this one. Let's just say job title. This one is about job title. I'll say job title. What will you do? What is the question says, what is the average age by job title? So what will you do? I will drag job title to rows so that I can just list out the job titles for me. Then I will take the age to values. By default, it's giving you sum of age, but we are looking for average. What will you do? You come here and you change it to average. You now have something like this. You click. This is all about formatting. You take this to number. You move the decimal places. So this is the average. Account representative, the average age is 43. Analyst, the average age is 44. So that is the answer. Okay, let me do this one. What is the count of employees hired each year? What is the count of employees hired each year? So I'll come back here, insert pivot table. I'll say, should I say higher years? So I can just say something like this. What is the count of employees hired each year? So I'll go to hired date. I'll drag this to rows. Then I'll go to what will give me what I'm looking for. I want to count, like I have 1992, 1993, 1994. So I want to know the employees, how many employees were hired in 1992, how many were hired in 1993, just like that. So what will give me that thing I'm looking for? The employees. So what represent employees there is either you use the name or the ID. These are what represent the employees. So I will drag the ID to values. So let's use the ID. So in 1992, we hired 11, 93, 3, and so on. You can click on this drop down here. Okay, I can click here. You right click, come to group. I'm looking for years. I'll click only years. So you can see change it to, I can do for quarters. The first quarter we hire 261 employees, second quarter 270, third 244, fourth quarter 225. So can change it. Let's change it back to years because that's what we are looking for. Can change it to months, the case may be. So that is it about pivot table. It's very important. Take your time, understand it very well. If you understand pivot table, the job is almost done.